I'm here today to represent my son, who's a veteran of the Coast Guard. Came back from Iraq, believe it or not, and was injured and went through an incredible amount of pain and suffering as a result of his tour of duty. And today he's still struggling with some PTSD, but he's moving along, he's getting through it, and he's an active person in the peace movement. And he has some very, very practical advice for everybody, and I think he said it to me well. He says, you know, Dad, peace protects people, war doesn't. And that's what he learned from his engagement in Iraq.
And at the time, what did you think of the war? It was said this was a necessity. It was, Saddam connected to 9/11 and all that.
Yeah, I personally didn't support the war. Unfortunately, I've heard the same kind of statements before, prior to Vietnam, prior to some of the other engagements we've had, and I was not a supporter, but my son, on his own volition, decided he wanted to help defend the coasts of America through his enlistment in the Coast Guard. I supported him because he's my son. Unfortunately, he had to learn the hard way that everything's not exactly as it appears.
What do you think of the fact that now we're not withdrawing from Afghanistan, we're bombing back in Iraq, and also in Syria now?
In my personal opinion, war does nothing but cause pain and suffering. There's all sorts of civilians that are going to suffer again. I don't want to see any of our young men being forced to go ahead and confront shells, bullets, or anything like that. And I think, unfortunately, most of these men come home, they don't receive the support they need. And further war is going to just cause more pain and suffering. And I personally abhor all that. And that's one of the reasons I'm against the war.
Jim, what are your thoughts today, Veterans Day, amid a lot of wars?
Well, that's a great question. We veterans, at least most of us, I'll speak for myself, but I feel I'm expressing the feelings and the thoughts of many veterans, is that we don't want to see any more wars. Many of us served because we thought it was the right thing to do. We joined, and as we got older, many of us found out later on that we were sold a bill of goods. And
when were you in the service?
I was in pretty early on, 1962 to 1966. I was in the Navy. I was a cryptographer. And I had to translate Russian messages into English. And then I was a lineman for a utility company. So in 1971, I joined the Navy Reserve, the Seabees. And I love the Seabees because we build things. We didn't destroy anything. And I was fortunate, unlike some of my comrades, I wasn't put in harm's way. I was very, very lucky.
What about now with, the president stopped pulling people out of Afghanistan, they're putting people in Syria. What are your thoughts about these conflicts?
I think that's a wrong move. I think that we are all sick of perpetual war. There's got to be a better way. I mean, we are the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We have the biggest military, the most powerful military in the world. We have weapons that can destroy this planet 1,000 times over, while people are going homeless and children are going hungry right here in our own city of New Haven and elsewhere. Never mind the destruction and the starvation and refugee crisis that's going on around the world because of the involvement of corporate interests. When people say we are going to defend our interests, what interests do they mean? It's not our interests, not our health, not our well-being, not our freedom from violence. What kind of human rights are they giving it? What interests? They're not protecting our human rights. They're violating our human rights and people around the world.
Al Marder, you're here at a peace demonstration and you are a veteran. What are your thoughts today on Veterans Day?
Well, first of all, Armistice Day is a day to memorialize those who died.
as a military alliance.
And I
was
consider
always
those
intended
comrades who did
to
die
other countries
are victims
and make them fearful
of wars
expand U.S. influence. It was a way
and
for the
in
US
many cases died.
spend less money in government
in vain.
countries to spend money basically to push U.S. policy.
And in order
NATO
to
has
guarantee
no role. We got to get rid of all
that
these
doesn't happen
military
again, we gathered here
Yeah.
against the possibility of World War III. We're facing
Yeah, there was a little noise passing by. So I see signs that say "Stop World War III." Do you see more dangers now than, let's say, a year or two ago?
Whatever the Russian role is in eastern Ukraine would dissipate.
U.S. foreign policy has become very aggressive, arrogant,
threatened on all sides.
and almost mindless.
On the other hand,
With the overthrow in
eastern Ukraine,
the government in Ukraine and the movement of NATO
Ukraine has
to the borders, the very borders
that are integrated with
of Russia,
They have very
occupying
close trading
actually
ties. What the US
every
is
single
trying
country
to
that
do
borders
is take Ukraine
Russia.
and separate its relationship,
And
cut its relationship with
sending troops
This makes no
into
sense.
Syria,
Imagine some countries saying we're going to cut your
of
ties,
course,
US ties with Canada.
keeping
Well, we would not
troops
like
in
that because we
Afghanistan,
have
maintaining the war hysteria. And the only answer the Obama administration has is increasing the military intervention.
My last question is, when were you in the service? Which service? Which theater?
Break Russia, which is a federal
When were you in the war in the military?
nation.
Oh, I
Break
was
it
in
up
the
into
European.
small nations,
Right,
so that
for
the
4
US
years.
can run Russia,
I was
the corporations can
an
run
infantry
Russia.
soldier and in combat in France and Germany, and then ended up in Austria.
Thank you very much.
Okay.